welcome to another episode of Boundless Body Radio. I'm your host, Casey Ruff, and today we have another amazing guest to introduce to you now. Dave Scatchard is a former professional hockey player with 11 years in the NHL. He played for some incredible organizations like the Vancouver Canucks, the New York Islanders, the St. Louis Blues, and the Nashville Predators, among others. On August 22nd, 2011, he announced his retirement on Twitter, stating that doctors told him that it would be unsafe for him to continue playing due to concussion-related injuries. But retirement didn't slow Dave down. He is now a life, business, and peak performance coach for allstarcoaching.com, which he started almost 12 years ago. He helps his clients achieve a greater sense of connection and mindfulness, and also helps athletes and businesses reach their true, untapped potential. Dave Scatchard, welcome to Boundless Body Radio.
Thank you, Casey. That's a great introduction. I might have to bring you on the road with me.
I was just joking with another one of my interviews. Like, do you ever get sick of hearing your own introduction? Like, it sounds so cool.
You know what? It's pretty nice to be able to have the NHL label attached to it. And to be honest, it's still taking me time to use it. I've done some really high level marketing training and things, and everybody's like, Dave, why don't you talk more about your NHL career? And I'm like, well, I want people to take me seriously as a peak performance coach. And I didn't want to rest on my laurels and have the fact that I, played in the best league in the world be the reason why people are working with me. And it was so silly. It was funny after I started realizing, because somebody said, it would be like a doctor that, doesn't use doctor in front of their name. Like, you've earned that right to be able to say NHL. So, I pinch myself sometimes to realize that I'm this small town kid from this tiny town in Canada. And, I got to play in the best league in the world for, from 97 to 2011 is when I retired. And, it was a crazy, wild ride. The things I saw, the people I met, the lifestyle I lived, the money I made, the teammates I got to play with, Mark Messier is my captain, Wayne Gretzky's my coach. Wow. I mean, Grant Fuhr is one of my buddies now. We golf together. I mean, it's like you start to see and be around the people that you grew up idolizing. I got so lucky because I grew up watching the Edmonton Oilers, being a kid from Alberta and then British Columbia. They were my team. And then as I got older, ended up playing with the Islanders, and the Islanders were amazing. And now I'm buddies with Brian Trottier and Clark Gillies and Bobby Nystrom. So I've got to be friends with all these guys that were warriors and won so many Stanley Cups. And these guys are my buddies now. It's really amazing. Crazy to think that, this kid from a town of 6,000 people could get to do the things that I got to get to do. Yeah.
That's so amazing. Yeah. I can't wait to deep dive into some of that stuff. I love those names. I have to question your credibility on one thing though. I've heard you talk about a time when you hit Pavel Bure, and okay, you absolutely didn't hit Pavel Bure for 3 reasons. First of all, you never hit the best player on the team because something really, really bad is going to happen to you. Secondly, you don't hit the best player on the team when he plays on your team. And third, Pavel Bure, he's the Russian Rocket. He is unhittable. He was my favorite player. I would play him on NHL 95. He was completely untouchable. Did you really hit Pavel Bure?
Yeah, it's really, really funny story. So I think it was my second training camp, the year I made the team in Vancouver. We were in Whistler. My mom and dad drove down from Salmon Arm, British Columbia to watch the training camp. And nobody really knew quite the camp before. I had a dislocated shoulder, so I wasn't really playing as aggressively as I normally play. I still had a good camp, but my shoulder's really messed up, so I wasn't really crushing guys. And I think it was the first or second scrimmage, and I was on opposite teams of Pavel. So Pavel and Gino Odrick were on a line, and then my line was out against their line. And Pavel just wound around the net, and I came off the bench, and I was just beelining right for him. And there's kind of a big player in front of me. I don't know if it's Dave Babich or somebody like Dana Merzen, one of the bigger guys, but I don't think he ever saw me ever. And he cut right into my path as I was going straight at him, and I hit him. and he went right through my legs and flat on his back. And the whole audience and the whole crowd and every player just stopped what they were doing. And he didn't move for like a second or two. And I'm like, holy shit, I think I just killed him. I apologize. I don't know if I'm allowed to swear.
Say whatever. People can turn it off if they want.
But that's what I really said. And then like, even Gino, who's his bodyguard and his protector, he was frozen and he looks at me and he's like, you can't hit Pavel like that. And I said, I'm sorry, I didn't even know what I was doing. I'm just a rookie, And I thought I was going to have to fight Gino. And I was willing to fight him. Like I knew that I had to play physical to make that team. And I'll be darned if probably a month later, I was starting the season with the team in Japan. And a funny story about that is the next morning, after the skate, Pat Quinn came down and purposely sought me out in the gym. And he came up to me. He's like, hey, Sketch. He's like, I've never seen Pavel ever get hit like that. Like, that was an incredible hit. And I thought he was going to be mad at me that I like took out his like multi-million-dollar player.
Oh, for sure.
And Pavel was fine. He finished the skate and he was fine. I think he was just so surprised that he got like hit so cleanly. And so Pat Quinn loved it. And then the next morning I woke up and I walked down to the lobby and, they'd switched my team. So I was now on Pavel's scrimmage team. And I was I was centering him, and Pavel was on my, I guess, right, and Gino was on my left. And the best thing about that is he goes, just go in and play physical. Let me and Gino work the puck, and you go to the front of the net. So I did, and then Pavel set me up for a hat trick. Actually, he had 2 goals first. And then somebody stepped on my wrist and I cut my wrist pretty bad. Oh. And I had to leave the scrimmage and go get stitches. And the doctor's like, hey, you're done for the day. This is just training camp. And I'm like, no, man, I got 2 goals. I got a chance. And I'm playing with Pavel Bure and Gino Ojic. Like, let me back out there. And I went out and I got my hat trick at the end of the game. And I was actually leading the training camp in goals and assists for the scrimmages and stuff. And I was like a rookie. So, that was like one of my favorite parts of my parents couldn't believe it. And I had nice write-ups in the newspaper about like my camp I was having. And I ended up starting that season in Japan where we started the NHL year with the Canucks. So that was really crazy.
That's amazing. What a cool story. I still can't believe that you actually hit him. There seems to be a theme in your life, and you talk about this a lot, and it's going all in. And I want to know, growing up, when did you decide that you were going to go all in on this dream that you had to be a professional hockey player?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, since I can remember, and it's really funny because my dad wasn't a huge pro hockey player. Like, he didn't even play hockey. He was like a PE teacher, and then he went and worked in the coal mines, and he liked hockey and he ended up playing like old timers and stuff, but he coached me my whole life. He was an amazing, amazing coach and teacher, but he didn't have like a hockey background or anything, which is really interesting. But since I was like 4 years old in preschool, I was drawing pictures of hockey players and saying that I was going to play in the NHL. And all my teachers would be like, Dave, you need a backup plan. And, the odds of making that are like 1 in a million. And, you're most likely not going to play. So you should really do your school. My dad, being a former teacher, really valued school and good grades as like a thing. But he said, look, like, you get good grades. He's like, I think you could chase this dream from a really young age. And he would ask me questions like that were really interesting. He'd say like, what do you think that you need to do to become an NHL player? And like, I'm like 7 years old or 8 years old. I'm like, I don't know, practice and like shoot, play street hockey and stuff. My dad's like, okay, that's good. And then he's like, how do you think you can make your wrist shot better? And I'm like, well, if I shot some pucks in my backyard every day. And he's like, okay, so why don't we go and collect pucks after every practice at the local rink? They go over the glass that are just laying around the rink. So I started to go after my practice and go collect all these pucks they're laying all over. And at the end, I had like probably 100, 150 pucks. And I grabbed a milk crate and I grabbed this piece of white plastic, like the sort of like the boards are made out of, and you could kind of slide the puck back and forth. And then I used my net that I had, and I ended up taking like 100 shots every day was like my minimum. And my dad said, do you think if you took 100 shots every day that it would increase your chances of like becoming a pro hockey player? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, okay. And that was it. He never told me you must shoot 100 pucks a day. He never, but every once in a while, if he thought that I was like not like really focused, he's like, did you take your 100 shots today? And I'm like, oh shoot, I forgot. And I go out, and dude, I'm telling you, this is part of the fabric that made me like a grinder. Is like, I would go out in the rain, I would go out in the snow, I would go out in the sleet, I would go out on the hottest day of the year, and I would just blast pucks into that net. And
Wow.
a friend of mine that I met when I was doing work with Tony Robbins' group said, do you still have that piece of plastic? Because if you do, you should frame it and put it in your office as a reminder of the hard work that it took for you to become one of the best, right? Like,
Wow.
there's always that 10,000 hour rule, right? Like,
Yes.
and with that laser focus. But like, I look at what I did, and it's almost a little bit obsessive compulsive disorder, where I would do things that like nobody else on earth would do, because it would be like crazy, like so repetitive and so many times. And I would have to hit the crossbar 10 times off the crossbar and the post and in order for me to go eat dinner. And if I hit the crossbar and it didn't go in, I had to start all over, and I had to do 10 in a row. And I would do these like little games with myself that like, I don't think normal people would have the patience for. And I just loved it. And I never, ever, ever felt like I wasn't going to make it. And as I got older, I was in this little town, so I was always the best player. And then we played other little towns, and like we'd dominate them and beat them like 20-0 and stuff. And we got kicked out of our league. And then we had to go start playing these like AAA teams in like Edmonton and like around Sherwood Park and St. Albert and all these like big city kids. And when we started to do those exhibition games, I'm like, holy smokes, there's some really good players out here that like I would have never found if we would have just stayed in our little fishbowl of playing the small towns. So that made me realize like, hey, I got to push even harder. So like, I was so scared of not making it that it made me like hungry. And I would do stuff that was like, I wore ankle weights like all the time. That was what I was Santa for Christmas. And I'd wear them to try to make my legs stronger. And I rollerbladed everywhere. And I had one of the first rollerblades in Canada. I would race the school bus on my rollerblades to school, and the kids would all be cheering, and I'd be like jumping curbs, and then the bus would pull ahead, and then I'd catch up, and all the kids are laughing, and the bus driver's laughing. And then like, eventually I was just blowing the bus. I'd beat the bus by like 5 or 10 minutes, and I delivered my paper route on, with the papers on with ankle weights and rollerblades. Like,
that's amazing.
Who does that stuff?
Wow.
So nobody really knows, right, Casey? Like, nobody really knows the work that goes in behind the whole thing. They see the finished product, they see the Ovechkins and they see the Crosbys, and they're so amazing, but they have no idea that this is like a way of being for them, where the work that they do is beyond anything that most of us could comprehend. And I know guys that played with Sid. I don't know Sid very well, but it's like they say his work ethic is just insane, and his discipline is so incredible. And it's amazing because you can see it in the results.
Jason Mraz is one of my favorite singers, and amazing songwriter. I love his music. I love his message, a lot of positivity and light, and it's really great. And he did a live performance on Spotify in 2014, and he would play a song and with his band, and then they would interview him. And I'll never forget, it was a little bit surprising to me at first to hear his answer to the question. And the question was, what advice would you give to somebody who's coming up and they want to play music and they want to, make it to where you made it? And his answer was, don't try to skip the steps. Like, people send me mixtapes all the time and they want my approval for these mixtapes, but you're missing the process. You're missing the shitty gigs at coffee shops and being really bad and practicing all day and like slowly working your way up. And he said, like, I never listened to these mixtapes because you're asking to skip the process. So I love that answer from you and how much work it truly takes. And everybody looks around and goes, oh, well, look at how he's in the NHL and he's got it made so easy, but they don't see the milk crate. They don't see the time that you almost quit. I mean, you were ready to go home from one of your early teams. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I left home at 16 to go play, and I had loving parents. Thank God, I had really good brother and sister. I loved being home. I loved all my friends and my family, and like I had things set up pretty well. And I knew that I had to leave to go find better competition at 16 to go play. So I tried to make the Winterhawks at 16, the Portland Winterhawks who had listed me, and I never made it. And I got cut, and I went down and I played for this, like, it was like junior A, but it was like kind of tier two. You could go the scholarship route. So it's kind of a farm team for Portland. But the weird thing about that league was they had unlimited overage players. So like they could have as many 20-year-old players as they wanted on that team. So coaches Wayne Weimer, his son Jason Weimer played in the NHL and for a long time. We ended up becoming teammates, and actually had my best year ever playing with him and Jason Blake in New York. But Wayne Weimer is his first year coach in junior hockey, and he wanted to win. So he just stacked that whole team with 20-year-olds. And then here's this 16-year-old that has to be on his team that he doesn't really want to be there. And he made my life like really tough. And the 20-year-olds were not kind. They weren't like, hey, let's take care of this kid. They're like, hey, we're fighting for ice time right now. And this kid's like got a position here without even having to like really earn it because Portland told them to keep me, right? And I was good enough to keep it, but I was heartbroken that I didn't make Portland. So for the first little bit, like I was kind of just confused and struggling because I thought I'd be down in Portland playing in the Western League. And I wasn't a tough guy. I didn't fight. I was kind of like a skill guy. And Wayne's son was really tough and physical. And like in order to get ice time with him, I had to like start playing physical. And I remember getting in my first fight. I fought this toughest guy in the league because he was picking on our littlest guy. And I said, why don't you pick on some of your own size? And he grabbed me and just beat the shit out of me. And I had, my face is broke. Like my first nose break, like bad. It was just blood everywhere. And I held in there. Like he didn't knock me out or anything, but I was just throwing punches as fast as I could, as hard as I could. And that kind of earned the respect of my teammates about halfway through the year. And then I ended up beating up this other guy really bad. I just gave it to him. And it was my second fight. I probably only had like 4 or 5 fights that year, but I kind of earned their respect that I was willing to like stick up for my teammates and do that stuff. So then because I was tall, I was only 165 pounds, but I was 6'3". Because I was tall, I seemed to get put into a role of like a protector of my teammates. And then I started fighting more and more and more. And then ultimately, that's probably why I made the Canucks as early as I did as a 20-year-old, because they already had their superstars with Pavel Bure and Alexander McGillney and Mark Messier and Trevor Linden and Marty Gelinas. They had like all these superstars. And then they needed somebody to try to draw penalties and play physical on the other team. So we had like Lonnie Bohannes, who scored 50 goals in the minors or 60 goals, and he didn't make the team. But me, who played 13 games or less, 20-something games in the minors, and then I had to get heel surgeries. That's a whole nother story. I didn't start skating until a month before camp. And somehow I made the NHL that year because I was on crutches. So yeah, it's been a crazy, wild journey. And I remember calling home as a 16-year-old and telling my mom, like, hey, these guys are like not nice. They're kind of bullying me. The coach hates me. My billet family doesn't know how to take care of me. They don't know how to feed me. I was like literally starving. They had 2 little tiny kids, so they never cooked big meals or like healthy meals. They just never been a billet family. They didn't know what they're doing.
You didn't come with a user manual.
Oh, it was terrible. And I'm sitting there like, what am I doing here? Like my teammates don't like me. And it wasn't even that. It was just my perception, like as a young guy. I just wanted to be everybody's friend and everybody to like be honest and like like the real world. It was like a wake up call. Like the real world, Dave, doesn't really work like the way that your family raised you, where everyone's honest, you do the right thing. Like it's like cutthroat. Like guys are like, I'm not giving up my ice time to this little punk and stuff. So they would overplay me in practice and run me. And, I didn't know I didn't know to protect my own space or like, it's like it's kind of like an alpha dog thing, like in the jungle, like if you let the alpha run you over, then he'll just own your ass for like ever. Like at a certain point, you have to like stick up for yourself. And it took me a long time to realize that, because I was always a team player. And even after the year I scored 27 goals in the Island, Laviolette took over as coach, and I didn't really stick up for myself. Like I should have been on the first or second line. I led the team in goals the year before, and I didn't want to rock the boat. I wanted to be a team player. So I just let him play me on the fourth or third line, and I was barely getting any ice time. And it was like, I went from 27 goals to 13 goals. And it was like, man, why didn't I demand that I should be on the power play? Like I didn't realize that I shouldn't have just been happy to be in the NHL. I should have like claimed my role as a top performer. And, but my dad raised me to like do the right thing and be a good team player first. And, even when I signed with the Bruins, I signed a 4-year deal with the Bruins. I could have signed 5 years in Toronto. For more money. I could have signed more money with the Rangers, way more money. And Nashville had less taxes. And I had all these other options, but I wanted to try to win a Stanley Cup. If I was going to go somewhere, I wanted to win a Stanley Cup. And Boston had Joe Thornton and Glenn Murray and Andrew Raycroft and all these good players. And I thought, wow, they have a chance to win a Stanley Cup. So I signed for 4 years, took less money, took a smaller role. I was going to be assistant captain of the Rangers. And I didn't even take it because I wanted to like do the right thing and be a team player and win a Stanley. I'm frustrated about a couple of those decisions I made, because I think it would have changed the course of my career. Who knows? But for whatever reason, those were the decisions that I made. And you never know. Like, you never know what the right decision is or how God's plans are for you or whatever. So that's just kind of how it all worked out. And I'm not regretful of one thing that ever happened to me in my career. And even the injuries and stuff, I'm just grateful for it, because it created who I am and what I'm about, and the fabric of a man that I'm proud of. I'm proud of the man that I've become.
Wow. That's fantastic. That was actually going to be one of my questions, is if you had any regrets from the league. You talk a lot about tipping points and, the turning points in your life, and, calling home and wanting to quit, and your parents saying like, I think you're going to regret it if you don't stay out there. You can always come home. We're always here for you, but try to stay out there. You described that as one of your tipping points. And another one I wanted to hit on, also, before you ever got to the league, and it was a skating session that you had to do with a few of the other players. Can you talk about that kind of tipping point in your career and deciding to go all in under very difficult circumstances?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to get off topic, but like those stories just came up in my brain.
Dude, no, they're great. It's awesome. I can see her all day. It's great.
So when I did call home, and I told my mom this, she was awesome, and she just said, "You know what, Dave? Like, you can come home anytime. Like, your bedroom's still here. All your friends are still here. They'll probably be here forever." Right? Like, you're trying to do something great. This has been your dream. This has been your goal. This is what you prepared so hard for. I really think you'd regret it if you didn't give it the whole season. And she's like, if you can stick it out another few months, the season's only like 8 months long. Like, you can, you'll be home for the summertime. You'll be home to water ski with your dad and your brother and all these things. So I did. And I'm so grateful that I did. And actually at that point, I made a decision that like nothing was going to stop me. Like, I was all in for the rest of my life to make the league. Like, if I would have went home, none of this would have happened. My whole life would have been completely different, and I would have regretted it the whole time. I have friends that did go home and from junior, and they still regret it. One of them's, a teacher, a PE teacher in Vancouver, and I know he regrets it. I mean, he got to watch me live out his dream because he was homesick and he missed his girlfriend or whatever, like, it's got to eat away at him. And I'm so grateful that I never quit. And then when I finally did go all in, it's almost like the doors just opened up for me. Like, literally, like, within 4 years from that 16-year-old year, I was in the league and I was playing with my idols.
Wow.
Like, it's crazy. So you're talking about probably my 17-year-old year, I go to Portland, and, I'm still not on the Winterhawks, and we have like a bunch of extras after training camp, and I think we have like 5 guys that are extra. I don't play in the first game of the year, so that's not a good sign. Like, I'm like, shoot, they're gonna send me back to Kimberley or back to Canada, and like, I'm not even gonna make it my second shot at this team. I was like a bubble guy. I was on the bubble of making the team, so I don't play in the first game. They bag skate us because we're not gonna play in that game, and that was a road game, so you couldn't keep you out there very long because it wasn't your ice surface. But when we came home, back-to-back games, the team, they're announcing the lineup after the morning skate, and it was a hard morning skate because they're still conditioning us. So we were probably out there an hour. They don't flood the ice, they don't do anything, and everybody's getting ready to go off the ice, and I'm getting ready to go off the ice, and they're like, "Hey, Scatch, like, stay behind. You're skating with, you know, so and so and so and so and so and so." And I'm like, "Oh man, okay, I guess I'm not playing again tonight. So this isn't good." And we start skating. So picture this, like, the other team has had their morning skate. They flood the ice. We come on, we have our morning skate. We don't flood the ice. So there's already been 2 sessions on there. The ice is so, especially in Portland, like the ice isn't great. It's soft. After two sessions on there, the ice surface is just crap. And then we start to skate. And this skate is like unlike any other bag skate I've ever done in my career, where it never seemed to end. And it was like hard. And at a certain point, probably like, figure this, we've been on the ice for an hour. Now we start bag skating for about another hour, like 45 minutes or an hour with no pucks. We're not really doing drills. We're like skating. It's like line rushes in basketball, like, you know what I mean? Or whatever you call those, lightning drills or whatever.
Yep.
And they started skating us. And I'm like, it's got to stop like soon. Like, but we're at home. Nobody's going to come and kick us off the ice. So like, it just keeps going. And at a certain point, a few of the guys are like, "Hey, Scatch, like, slow down. Let's pace ourselves. We're obviously going to be out here for a while." And
hey, sorry to interrupt Dave's story, like right in the middle of the story. There was a Zoom ping that happened, and it only lasted about a second, but afterwards, the tone of the voice that was coming through on our end was like totally different. So I decided to add this little bumper. Hopefully it helps with the continuation of the episode. The content is just so good. Dave's such a good guy. Really encourage you to check out his work. At the end, he'll give you the links where you can do that. And also, please, if you don't mind, drop us a rating and review. We don't ever ask for them. We want to earn them, but a nice reminder that it really helps us out. We pay a lot for the show, and to put this on is not free or easy or anything like that. So if you don't mind, give us a rating and review wherever you're listening to this. It really helps other people find this show, which is the only reason why we're doing this. So without further ado, we'll continue with Dave's story.
I want to be accepted by my new teammates like everybody else, right? But there's this other part of me that's like thinking like, you know what? I've worked hard to be in this good of shape. I trained my ass off all year long. Like, I'm not on this team anymore. I'm like, I'm not going to play small for these guys. I'm not going to slow down for these other guys. Like, I'm just going to keep going and do my thing. And this is a skate for me. And I was pissed off that I wasn't playing. So like, I was really angry, and I was like kind of taking it out on myself kind of during the skate. And I just put the pedal down to the metal even more after they said that. And I started like lapping guys. I started like beating guys by like 2 or 3 lines, and literally I just got in the zone where I was just like freaking unstoppable, and guys are getting pissed off at me, and we're going in the corner and they're swearing at me and things like that. And like, guys are puking. That's how hard the skate was. I remember vomiting in the bench and just going back to the line.
Wow.
Keep skating. And then it finally ends. And it was somewhere between 45 minutes and an hour more. So like, we're on the ice for basically 2 hours straight, hard. Like, I'm busting my ass trying to like show my stuff. And I'm going off the ice, and the assistant coach who the guy was skating us said, "Hey, Scatch, come here." And I'm like, "What?" He's like, "You're in the lineup tonight. Congratulations. You earned your spot in the lineup tonight."
Wow.
And I'm like, "What do you mean? I got to play now?" I'm like, "I don't have anything left. I left it all on the ice." And he goes, "Yeah, you're going tonight. We're going to take one guy and put him in the lineup." So I was on the 4th line. I didn't play much. I probably played like 6 or 7 minutes, thank God, because my legs were just fried. But what I didn't know Casey, is that they did that on purpose. And the general manager, Ken Hodge, and the head coach, Brent Peterson, and a couple of scouts were way up in the press box. We couldn't see them while we were on the ice. We thought the arena was empty, and it was just the assistant coach skating us. And what I didn't know was that was like a test. They were trying to break us. It's like almost like the Marines, right? When they're doing boot camp, they're trying to like break you and see who quits. And I had no idea. I wasn't skating for the coaches. I wasn't skating for my teammates. I was skating for myself because I knew that in order for me to make the NHL, I had to get stronger. I had to get faster. So I was just looking at like training camp for me. Like, I'm like, well, if they're sending me home tomorrow, at least I'll know that I gave it everything that I got, you know? I had no idea how pivotal that bag skate was, because the very next day, they sent home like 3 or 4 of the 5 guys. Like, they were gone, and I never saw them again.
Wow.
And they never made the team, and I made that team. And then the crazy part, Casey, is that I went from being a bubble boy to going through mono that same year, where it took out like a quarter of my season, and I lost all this weight. Like, dude, I was skinny to start with. I was just deathly ill. I couldn't eat. Wow. I was living on throat lozenges.
Wow.
And I couldn't skate. I couldn't train. I would sleep like 20 hours a day. No joke. And I'm like, this is the worst. This is my draft year. Like, what's going to happen? And I ended up coming back right before playoffs. And the funny thing was, even though I had no energy, I started to do these like stepper routines that I asked my coach to create for me, where I'd go to the gym and I literally was so sick that I could barely move. And I started off with like 2 or 3 minutes on the Stairmaster, and then it would go to 5 minutes, and I'd go to 7 minutes. I was slowly like working through the sickness, trying to keep my legs going. And I came back right before playoffs. I had a great playoffs with Lonnie Bohannes and Adam Deadmarsh were my line mates. And like, Adam was a superstar that was a first round pick. Lonnie was a 60 goal scorer. So like, I had a really good playoffs. And then this is the important part, is like, I knew that the draft was coming and central scouting was coming. So I had to I couldn't stop. Like, the season's over. I'd miss like the last quarter of it. And then I got in for playoffs, had decent playoffs. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm just going to keep training. So most people went off and partied or did their thing or went back home and shut it down because it's been a long year. And I went home and I trained like a banshee, like twice as hard. I ended up going to do the central scouting fitness testing before the draft. And I didn't know this at the time, but I ended up finishing first in the world in fitness testing, after being so sick all year long and not being able to train, and then like training my butt off for like a couple months leading up to the central scouting testing. And it was funny because there's all these first round draft picks and all these high guys that all the scouts were following around at central scouting, like they're all watching them. And then by the end of it, I had this crowd of people just wandering around following me everywhere, and like nobody had even known who I was leading up to that. I mean, they knew who I was, but they didn't realize like my potential. And then during the draft, I ended up going 42nd overall in the world, from nobody even knowing who I was to start the season. And Vancouver had mentioned to me that my fitness levels and my work ethic during the combine, basically, that's what it would be like, the NFL combine. They said they saw something special in me, and that they knew that they could teach me how to play hockey, but they couldn't teach me how to be a top level athlete. And so they could see the potential. They called me a work in progress. And yeah, man, it's the rest is history. We did it. And the fitness testing to start every year, I would always be at the top or very close to the top. And I think that helped solidify my spot in the league too, is I showed up as a professional, like ready to work.
That's amazing. So many great life lessons in that story. What a great story. I want to talk a little bit about the time that you got moved from the Canucks over to the Islanders. And, you know, the Canucks had much more of a leadership presence with some of those great names. What was the difference when you got to New York, and how did your experience in Vancouver help you with the Islanders?
Well, I had a decent relationship with Pat Quinn. Mike Keenan hated me at the start and then loved me. And that was a spot where he was pushing me. and I actually pushed back. I heard that he hated young guys. He wanted all veterans. And if he didn't like you, you were gone. And I was really nervous that I was going to lose my spot that I had earned under Tom Rennie and Pat Quinn. So when Vancouver hired him, I was really scared. And Messier was kind of a mentor of mine. And he said, hey, listen, like, he's going to push you. Like, don't let him push you around. He almost wants you to push back. So there's this is a funny story. I just wrote about this in my book. It's coming out. That's in like 4 months, that book will come out. And that's called The Comeback, My Journey Through Heaven and Hell. But I wrote about it in the book. And I said, I was sitting on the bench and it was my first or second game. And I just felt this sharp stab in my kidney. And it was the second period. I hadn't had a shift yet. So I'd warmed up. I'm ready to play the game. I'm like a young guy. It's like, I'm ready to go and I'm not getting any ice time. And I feel this kick in my back, and Mike Keenan had kicked me between my pants and my shoulder pads. So like right where your pants are kind of folded down when you're sitting on the bench. And he drilled me with his dress shoe right in the kidney. And I'm like, wow, what the and I turned around and I shot him a dirty look. So I think that's the end of it. And 2 seconds later, he kicks me in the other one, like hard. And I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Wow. And he says, what have you done all day? You haven't done anything out there. And I said, Mike, I haven't had a shift. Of course I haven't done anything. I go, put me on the ice. I'll do something. And he's like, if I put you on the ice, you're going to do something. I'm like, yeah, put me on the effing ice. And he's like, we'll see. And like, he was testing me, right? It was one of his first or second games with me. And he goes, oh, this is what he said to me too. He goes, what's your name? He goes, I don't even know what your name is. I got Messier and Bure over here and McGillney. Who are you? I don't even know who you are. He goes, you know what? I think I'm going to send you down. I think I'm going to send you down tomorrow. And I'm just like, okay, well, I got to do something now. So he puts me out on left wing. I'm a right-handed shot. I play center or right wing. He puts me out on the left wing. And I forget who we were playing, Pittsburgh or Boston. The guy had a black jersey. I remember that. And I said, hey, we got to go. And I don't know who the guy was. And he's like, yeah, absolutely. So I grab him and I just beat the tar out of him. And I'm like, he's down on the ice and I'm punching the guy in the face while I'm staring at Keenan on the bench. And he's looking right at me with this huge grin on his face. And I'm so mad because I've never really had a coach like make me fight, or like supposedly, you know what I mean? Like he didn't tell me to go fight, but I knew that I had to go do something crazy. So I'm punching the guy in the face, staring at Keenan like, F you. And he's smiling from ear to ear. And then the refs grab me. And instead of me like turning around and skating towards the penalty box, which is opposite of the Vancouver bench, I make them push me backwards. So I'm staring at the bench and I'm skating backwards and they're pushing me. And I'm like mouthing the words like F you to Keenan. And he's just smiling and nodding his head like, yeah, buddy. So from that day on, I was like his favorite. Like I was like his pet, but he used me as a whipping boy too. So he would attack me at practice because I wasn't a Bure or a Messier or a McGillney. He wasn't going to scream at those guys. So whatever the team message was, he would scream it at me. And he kind of knew that I could handle it. But man, like as a young player, a 20 or 21-year-old guy, like, if you can get through that fire, there's no other coach out there that's going to like scare me ever again. Like it made me tougher. And the fact that I had a coach when I was 16 that didn't like me, just made me be able to just do my thing. And there's going to be times in your life where people don't like you. And it's like, that's on them. That's not on you. You know what I mean? I show up, I do my work, I do what I'm supposed to do. And then if they don't like me at the end of the day, no problem. Like I did my job. And, as my coaching, I'm a life and business coach now. Like I tell people all the time, like you have to look at it like, hey, I'm going to surround myself with people that love me and respect me and support me. And I tell this story. It's like I have a magic carpet ride. Okay, I have a magic carpet. I'm going to go on this crazy journey, this crazy adventure through all these magical places and magical lands. And this is going to be a place that most people can't even comprehend, or they don't even understand, or they don't even want to go there. And guess what? That's okay. That's okay. I'm not going to go and save everybody. I'm not going to be able to help everyone see the things that I get to see or do the things that I get to do. So guess what? If you don't want to be on my magic carpet ride, it's okay. I'll wave to you as I fly by. I'm not going to hate you for it. That's your journey. But if you want to go on a magic carpet ride with me, let's go. And I love that metaphor because it doesn't make it personal. And it's like, hey, I'm just going to go do my thing. And if you're with me, cool. If you're against me, no big deal. It doesn't affect me. I'm already gone. Like I'm already on my process. I'm on my journey. So I've kind of like adopted that and just made that my mantra where it's like, I just want to be around people that are playing the game at the highest level. And that's the game of life and pro sports and investing and health and fitness. Like, you know what I mean? I can't go be a life coach and business coach and not walk the walk. I got to know what I'm talking about. And I got to I can't show up 400 pounds and be teaching people how to have more energy and how to look good and feel good. So, I think sometimes people just worry so much about what everybody else thinks that they stop themselves from chasing their dreams. And it makes me so sad because it's like, they don't know what's inside of you. They don't know the champion that's trying to get out. They have no clue what you're built of or what you're called to do. So, screw them. I mean, you're on your mission. Go make your dreams come true. Don't be afraid. There's nothing to be afraid about. You don't need anybody's approval. Go for it. It's a different game. It's a different game when you adopt that mindset. It's like, if I would have listened to all the haters that told me I would have never made it, I would have stopped a long time ago. If I would have been rational and let my rational mind go Dave, you know what? Let's focus some more attention on this or that or the other thing, because this probably is not going to work. Realistically, if we're looking at the numbers. Wow. But I never, ever, ever believed it. I'm like, that's not true. I know I can do this. I believe I will do everything I have to do this. If I got to run till my lungs bleed, if I got to bag skate till my legs feel like they're going to fall off and I can't even stand up and I'm barfing on the bench and I'm feel like I'm going to die, I'm pushing my body. I'm expanding my mind. Once I do it once, I'm like, well, I've done this before. Let's go do it again. And every bag skate after that, I did it. Every training session where I'm like, I don't know if I can squat 500 pounds. Well, let's see if I can. Holy smokes, I squatted 500. Okay, let's see if we can do 550. These are real things that I went through in my life where I was this little skinny kid that everyone was hating on, and not hating on, I shouldn't say that. I was a really good young player, but they're like, Dave, the NHL, no, that's not going to happen. So, for your listeners, don't buy into the other people's stuff, man. That's their stuff. That's not your stuff. You have no reason, nothing to harness of your life into their model of the world. If they're that way, that's fine. You're not going to save everybody. You're not going to get everybody on board, but who cares?
That's amazing. Dude, that is so well said. I love the way you explain that. My favorite book in the world is The Untethered Soul. I'm not sure if you've read it or not. It's fantastic. And it gives an example of the constructs that we have in our minds. You build these walls that are nothing. They're made out of your own thoughts or emotions, and you just build them, and you trap yourself inside the wall. And it gives an example of a dog, and the dog is wearing a shock collar and one of those invisible boundary kind of things, like an invisible fence. And the dog approaches the invisible boundary and he gets kind of buzzed. And so he backs away. But if there is a very brave dog that is willing to inch closer to the buzzing and is okay to be uncomfortable and is okay to push himself, he can be free. There's nothing physical that's limiting his expansion. It's just going to be uncomfortable. It's like that fire that you described. I love the way you talk about pushing boundaries. And I love that you incorporate that into your coaching. That must be a huge thing for people to learn about and grow from.
Yeah, it's so well said. That's a great book, by the way. Nothing great ever comes in certainty or comfort. Ever. You will not be great if you're trying to keep your life certain or comfortable. It all comes in uncertainty, the edge of chaos, and discomfort. Getting comfortable being uncomfortable is the whole key to the game. the amount of uncertainty that you can train yourself to live in will be a direct reflection of the amount of fun and adventure and craziness you can experience in your life. But if you can't have any uncertainty, you're going to live pretty flat. It's just going to be kind of a mundane, boring life. And that's fine. I'm not telling everyone has to go do crazy, epic stuff, but I coach people who just can't even fathom doing certain things. And then after I see them finally break through and go for it, they're like liberated. They're like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. And there was a great quote that I wrote to one of my girls, one of my clients. And it said something like this. It said, instead of being liberated from something, you're about to be liberated to something. And I thought, wow, what if it wasn't all about what happened to us in the past? And what if it was only about what we're creating in the future? Because we've all had shitty stuff happen in our past. And trust me, I've worked with 10,000 people through my last couple of challenges in the last 6 or 7 months. And the common denominator is that a lot of people are living in the past, and they're telling me their circumstances are because this happened to me when I was 10, or this happened to me when I was 20, or my husband left me, or this person passed away, or whatever. So they've never been able to move on from that. They're still stuck to that attachment of the past, when that's really like an anchor for a lot of people. There's no juice back there if you're a true external. And when I mean an external, this is like kind of complicated theory, so I don't really want to get into it here, but a true external, a seeker, a lot of times will be an external where they actually get fed from the future. They get fed from the cosmos and the spaciousness and the expansiveness. And when we go back, or when we constrict, a lot of times we just shut down all the emotional intelligence and the energy that's trying to flow to us, and we armor up and we go, wow, that was too scary. That hurt too much. So I'm just going to lock it down here. I'm going to go into survival mode, and I'm just going to play it safe because I don't like how that felt and that scared me. So I'm never going to go there again. And that could be with a past relationship that didn't work out, or right. Like how many things in our baggage are we lugging around because something happened in the past, and we're lugging this around into our future going, wow, I can't believe I can't find anybody to have a relationship with. Well, your first relationship hurt you so much that you just closed down all the best parts of you because it hurt. And now everybody else just gets this like half-assed version of you that's not even reality. It's really interesting.
Wow.
So part of what I do with my coaching is I work on removing masks and armor with people. And the second that they reconnect to their authentic self, or their purest version of their soul, or their inner champion, we have like sort of 3 or 4 angles we attack this at, but one of my favorites is the inner champion. And when we go through this emotional flood where somebody goes through the highlight of their life, or one of their most magical moments where time stood still and they were winning the game of life, and they're like, oh my goodness, like I couldn't be stopped, I was unstoppable. You know, these are the languages that these people use. And I've had world champion boxers on my challenge. I've had pro football players, pro hockey players. I've had pro baseball players in my challenge. And I pull them out on the first day and I go, all right, do I have any pro athletes in this challenge? And people come on and I'm like, all right, let's have a talk. And they're like, okay. And they have no idea it's coming. And I do this process with them, and like they're bawling on the phone, and they're like, oh my God, I lost track of that guy. I got off track. I lost my swagger. And when they find it again, it's like the energy of the group is like buzzing, and people can feel that. So, you know, my challenge is called the Reawaken Your Inner Champion. And that's part of the reason why I named it that, because there's such a powerful thing that happens when somebody reconnects to what they're really built for and what they're really made for, because you've all had glimpses of it. And it could be this magical moment where your child, you know, during your kid's first birth, or you know, or you're in sports, or some business deal you pulled off, or the first time you're really scared and you did it anyways and you felt like on fire. Like those are the moments that I'm trying to get back to and touch. And that's the only time I ever really go back into the past to do the work, because we want to grab that highlight reel and we want to like stack it. And then we pull all that forward and we dump everything else.
Wow.
And Yeah, it's really, really cool. And it's super powerful. It's so fun.
That's amazing.
And sorry, I don't mean to ramble on.
Dude, it's great. No, this is awesome. It's so great. I think back on, I don't even know where I found this, but I think back in a time of my life that I was feeling really stuck and limited and not doing exactly what I wanted to do. And I remember doing a visualization that said, just forget any limitation. You pretend that there's nothing to stop you. You can do anything you want. Imagine your most ideal life 5 years from now. And I remember thinking okay, this is a little ridiculous. These things can never happen, but let me just jot some things down and I'll stick it in my notes section of my phone. And I go back and look at that now, and it's been 4 or 5 years. And some of the things that I put on that list are things that are in my life, like walking around in flip-flops, helping people, serving people, walking by a beach was one of the things I put on there. And we live a mile away from a lake that has a beach. And I help people all day. And I think of the uncomfortable decisions that we had to make starting a business in a pandemic that was able to free up that life for us and unlock that for us. And I just think yes, we get in our own way. We drag our stuff around, like you said. What an amazing work that you do to help people realize that if you remove your physical and mental and emotional limitations, there's no limits. You can do whatever you want.
1,000%. Here's the deal. We grew up trying to be pleasers to our parents and be a good boy and don't be flashy, don't be cocky. Don't speak unless spoken to. Good girls don't do this. Good boys don't do this. Get straight A's. Be perfect. And you're walking around your whole life on eggshells, trying to live by this other model that was set up for you as kids from who knows what. And it's passed down through generations. So my dad tried to imprint things on me that his dad did on him, and I get out and I basically have this near-death experience. I are kind of reborn, and I'm recreating my whole life and healing and doing all these crazy things. And I'm realizing oh my gosh, a lot of what I thought was real is not real. That was somebody else's construct of the map of my world. And I'm what if I just made my own map according to my own rules? And what if I just made my own magic carpet? I just did my own epic stuff. And literally, my life just started to change instantly. When I dropped the mask, dropped the armor, all my bleeding in my brain and the concussion problems and the, Alzheimer's medicine I was on and all this weird stuff that I had to take after my injuries, I just started to instantly heal. And it was like miracles. And then God started to speak to me and tell me that the reason why I suffered for those 3 years after my injury, so dark that I wanted to end my life, were because I needed to understand desperation and anxiety and fear and depression to the point where it felt like I couldn't be on this earth anymore, because the people that I was going to serve in the future were all going to be coming from there. Wow. And I was what? I'm that's why all that happened? Because I thought God was punishing me for some reason. And I'd seen God. I didn't grow up in the church. I didn't grow up in anything. And during this near-death experience, I'm communicating with God. I'm seeing God. God's holding me. God's walking with me. I'm just oh my goodness, that's a whole nother story. And I'll share that for the next time I come on your podcast. But the thing was, when I left, I said to God, I said, you know what? I need to go back to be with my babies. I had a 1-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 4-year-old. And I said, I said, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to sell all my stuff and give it away to charities or mission? You want me to go on a mission trip? What do you want? And the message back to me was, Dave, I just want you to take this love and grace. And it was incredible up there. And it's I want you to take that back on earth. And I want you to share that with everyone that you come across in your life, because you're going to come across a lot of people. And I want you to love each one of them like they're your brother or your sister. Wow. That's all I want you to do.
That's amazing. That is so cool. And you are definitely doing that with your practice. I've seen your content. It's really good. I can see your authenticity and your willingness to help and to share and to share that message of love is just so awesome. I'm so much looking forward to your book coming out. I'm signed up for your coaching program. If you don't mind, tell the listener a little bit about the program and what that entails and where people can find that.
Well, I'm super excited that you're going to be there. So just to give you guys a heads up, you get signed up. This is a completely 100% free challenge. There's no strings attached. At the end of it, I'll give people a chance to move on with me if they want to. And a lot of people do, but there's zero pressure. I'm going to give you enough stuff. I'm going to give you a year's worth of content over 7 coaching days that are spread out. So for example, we start April 21st. We go the 21st, 23rd, 26th, 28th, 30th, 2nd, and 5th, or something like that. And we give you time in the middle to absorb some of the content. We put it in a hub so people can watch the replays if they can't make the lives. But, my goal is to have 10,000 people in this one alone. And, I run a ton of ads to get people in there. And that's my give back. That's my mission, is to give back and to serve. And this whole challenge came to me from a message from God when I didn't really talk much about my coaching background, but after I got injured, I traveled the world trying to find answers because the Mayo Clinic couldn't really help me after 3 years, and they just told me I was going to be permanently disabled. So wow. I ended up getting in Tony Robbins' world, and I joined his Platinum Partnership group, and then I did everything that Tony did for 2 years, and he sort of mentored me from a distance, and he's the one that told me that I really needed to coach, and I got certified under his group. And then I just went off on my own, and I was like learning from all these crazy like monks and shaman and healers and like all these grandmasters. Like I spent like a few years learning from the best in the business, and Tony would usually introduce me to these people, and I just like invest and just go as deep as I could to learn all their magic. So fast forward, I started helping athletes. Then I work into entrepreneurs. And then I'm sitting there and I've got all this knowledge. I've got like a decade worth of training and knowledge, and I'm only helping people one-on-one. And then during the COVID, the message from above was, are you going to help these people? Because they're scared, they're depressed, they're laid off, they're going through transition, they're sick, they're trying to heal. Like, how to do all these things. Why aren't you helping them? And I'm like, what am I supposed to do? I don't know how to do this. And then the whole challenge group thing started, and we didn't even know. I built the program as I was going every day. I just felt called to do it. And it was a grand slam success where we saved lives. We transformed lives. We had 6 and 7 figure winners in after 7 days of the challenge. They're like, oh my God, this deal came through, and there's a miracle, and all this magic started to happen. And I'm like, holy smokes, like, what if I do it again every like 3 or 4 months? So I think we've done 4 now, 3 or 4, and we've run over 10,000 people through it. And, my goal is to have 10,000 alone in this one. And we'll see how it goes. Obviously, you never know with the Facebook ads and algorithms and messaging, and we changed the name a little bit. So it's kind of risky, but I think I live and thrive in that area, and my message isn't my message. I'm just literally showing up, and it's just kind of funneling through me. And I don't even know. People are like, Dave, how can you talk for an hour and a half straight and not take a breath? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm not talking. I'm just like, I'm just letting the information flow through me. But there's so much content. I've had people do the challenge all 4 times, and they say they've gotten massively more results every single time. And I'm like, well, how can you listen to the similar content all the time? And they're like, Dave, it's not. It changes. It's like constantly evolving, just like I am. So I'm excited for you. I think it's going to be a gateway to everything that we do and the people we serve. And our mission is pure and honest. This isn't like a spiritual training or anything. This is like real business and life training. We work on health, relationship, career, finances. And then we add in spirituality and connection sprinkled in all over that. And it's like, it's funny to me that I'm sitting here talking about this stuff because like, I'm a hockey player. This isn't about me anymore at all. It's pretty crazy to think how far we've come and such a short amount of time. And what does the future look like, right?
Yeah.
Like it can be massive.
That's
so
amazing.
I'm excited that you're going to be there.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so much looking forward to it. We will definitely share the message along. It's so important and empowering for people to hear.
Casey, one thing too, I was just thinking, I think if you go to allstarcoaching.com, that should have our sign up link, registration link there. Instagram, my bio, my profile should have it in there. And we're literally just starting the marketing today. So this
great.
is, you guys will be, I think we've had a couple hundred people sign up yesterday, but, it's a good chance to get in there early. We've got 3,600 people in our Facebook group that are all lit up and have done this challenge already. So they're going to be there to cheer you on and support you. And it's really special. I've only eliminated 2 people out of that group out of 3,600. So that tells you the quality of the people that are in that group and how much love and support there is in there. So
that's amazing.
Anyways, just thought I'd mention that.
Yeah, no, that's great. We'll link to all of that in the show notes and try to get as many people over there as possible. That's fantastic. I love that concept. What is one simple thing you would like to leave with the listener today that they can apply in their lives and see an immediate benefit?
Most people underestimate themselves and what they're capable of doing. And if it's not working, whether it be your health, whether it be your business, whether it be your relationship, it all comes back to the energy that you're bringing towards it. And you can look at energy like focus, or you can look at energy like time or discipline. But if it's not working, you need to bring more energy towards that, because if we're dispersing our energy in 50 different ways, it's just not strong enough to make anything magical happen. But if we just laser point that energy and put like 80, 90% of our energy at something, we'll get it to move. It's going to move one way or another. We're going to get it to like shift or change or something. But most people are just too diffuse with their energy and their focus, where everything just kind of like stays where it is, because it's not like there's not a clear enough target and enough coherence of the energy that they're using or the type of energy they're using to get the job done. So believe in yourself, get clear on what you're trying to do, and throw everything you got at it.
Man, I love that. That's so well said. We really just appreciate you and all your work. Tell us again where people can go to find you and connect with you.
Yeah. Dave Scatchard on Instagram and Twitter. Our Facebook page is Dave Scatchard Peak Performance Coaching. allstarcoaching.com is the website that usually has our most updated challenge links or anything that we're doing. And allstarcoaching.com or Dave Scatchard on Instagram, and you're going to kind of know where we're at with most of the stuff that we got going on. And we have one-on-one coaching, we've got masterminds, we've got group coaching, we've got the challenges. I just had a workshop and I had 7 people at my house for 3 days, which is awesome. So we're doing it. This is what I do every day. Every hour of my working week is spent working with people. So I feel like I've worked with so many different businesses and so many different athletes and entertainers that I really have a good grasp on how to up level and get more for people, because I think most people never chase their dreams or don't know how to start, or they just don't have a map. And after 7 days in the challenge, you're gonna have a clear map on where you're going and what you're trying to do. It gets really clear. That's one of the things that we promise. And we do time management in there. We do all kinds of fun stuff. So I'm telling you, buckle up, get yourself signed up, and you're gonna have a blast. And I'm looking forward to meeting all of you. And I'm excited to see you in there too, Casey.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm really looking forward to it. Dave Scatchard, what a great example. What an amazing life you've lived. Going all in, working hard, earning the right to do what you did. We're just so grateful for you and all your work and all the work you're doing now in the challenge. So thank you so much for everything you do. And thank you for the time coming on to Boundless Body Radio today.
You're welcome, buddy. Good luck. Keep it going. And it's a pleasure to get to know you.
Absolutely. Pleasure's ours. And this has been another episode of Boundless Body Radio.